Hello, welcome to Generally Speaking. Today is Tuesday, March 24th. Let's hit the ball. Let's hit the road. Let's get the ball rolling. Israel's 80-year curse. What is that exactly? Well, apparently, during two previous Israel kingdoms, the kingdom of David, and another one during the Second Temple area, the Hasmonean kingdom. It is noted that within the 8th decade, the 80th years period, that both of those kingdoms began their decline. Now, they both lasted for a couple of hundred years. So saying that this 80 years is all that they lasted, no. But there are specific points in which it can be said that this is when the decline began, 80 years in. And now Israel worries that they might be coming up to that again. Israel's coming on its 75th anniversary, and they don't want to have another 80-year debacle. And should there be any concern? Well, there is a lot of civil unrest at the moment, primarily between the Orthodox population and the rest of the population. You know, the Orthodox are the people who wear the black and white outfits, and they were a minority in the early days of Israel, but now they form 20% of the population. And what more is there about them that's important? What's important is that they don't have to work. They are allowed by the government to just study the holy books, their Torah, and they're paid by the government. Additionally, they don't have to serve in the armed forces. This is starting to rub the rest of the population a little wrong, number one, because so much of the population has had to go into war and die, and additionally because the drain on the resources. Now, I don't know, the drain is that big because the U.S. just keeps throwing $20 billion here, $20 billion there. You know, it's not that much, but they're starting to get irritated by these black and whites. They're starting to say things like, send the penguins to war. Yeah, so maybe there is some civil unrest starting there. Trump has removed sanctions on Iranian oil, and he's already removed it on Russian oil. Now he's removing it on Iranian oil, but not exactly. He's just removing it on oil that's already on boats sitting in the Gulf, waiting for delivery, but can't because of sanctions. So he's going to remove the sanctions on those fuels, so not just the continuing forever oil. So this will be a benefit to Iran in the short term. And of course, Russia is just living with this benefit for a long term. Men, not women, mind you, are now being auto-registered with the Selective Service. And this was like raising people's eyebrows. What? Draft? You're going to start drafting people? And then people's talking about, oh yeah, just wait and see. Try to draft the Gen Z folks. You won't see that happen. Who knows what will happen. But the Selective Service has been required to be registered with all along. It's just that, you know, a person had to go and do it, either in an office or online. It's just now it's being done automatically. So it's not really a change in everything, except that it just brings to the front, especially during this war, that the possibility of a draft happening. All right, and again, I just have to reinstate, men only, not women. All right, Israel bombed an Iranian oil field. Now, strictly speaking, it wasn't an oil field. It was a place where refined oil can already be put on boats, just offloaded, onloaded to boats. But that's part of the supply chain, that your life depends on selling the oil, and that's an interruption. And since we destroyed much of the material there, Iran decided to pay back. So they bombed an oil facility in Israel, in Haifa. They also bombed facilities in Saudi Arabia and Qatar. And so, of course, with the Strait of Hormuz being closed and these facilities now being reduced in their production, oil shortages are causing major problems. And not just oil. There was also liquid natural gas facility, one of the biggest ones in the world, was recently attacked, reducing its output by 20%. So a lot of energy is being shut off from the world, and it's being felt everywhere Even the United States, which I believe doesn't depend so much on oil from the Gulf, but nonetheless, if a price of oil per barrel goes up, we, the United States, ends up paying for it too, and we're seeing it at the pumps. It's going up. How long it'll be before the population of the United States starts thinking, no, maybe I don't like this anymore. Well, we'll see. China is happy to see the U.S. exhaust all its military weapons, and of course, why wouldn't they? Russia as well. Russia is sending 2 ships with oil and gas to Cuba. We're strangling Cuba. We're killing them. Why we have this thing against Cuba specifically, I don't know. I should say I don't know. I know because Cuba won't go along with, letting the capitalists do whatever they want in their country. Plus, it's right on their doorstep. It's bad enough. Any Latin American country should not want to be under the thumb of the USA, but 90 miles right offshore, no, they can't have that. And now they're cutting off the oil. That's like a vital thing for this world. And it's a good point to remember. This is why countries should start going to renewables like solar and wind. And in fact, I read a story about Norway has more production of energy from wind and solar than it does from oil. And they actually produce some oil. So they're becoming an exporter of oil. And Europe as a whole has been suffering with oil shortages, natural gas shortages for a long time. They're starting to get more and more on board with the alternate energy things. Cuba needs to move in that direction. But I guess it's hard to do anything when all of your money has been restricted left and right. You can't even invest in anything. All right, so this Russia sending 2 ships, this was actually a little while ago, and I haven't heard any update on it. It disappoints me when you hear a headline story, and wow, oh, that's interesting. I wonder how that's going to end up. Boom, you don't hear about it ever again. All right, the Pentagon is seeking an additional $200 billion for the Iran war. They say that all these missiles for defense against the incoming missiles, we shoot up 5 multi-million-dollar missiles to take out one 5-cent drone that comes in, and it's very expensive to defend, and for the people sending in the drones, it doesn't cost them a thing, and eventually we run out of missiles to send up and shoot. And the way it was being talked about earlier on, you'd think there were no more missiles at this point, but we're still defending with the missiles, so I guess they're still there. But we're recognizing a shortage. That's why we need another $200 billion. We need to build some more missiles and take down those drones. The administration has said we don't think we can actually do regime change anymore. That doesn't seem to be a success we're doing good at. Or reducing the nukes production possibilities. Doesn't seem like we can do anything with that. So what are we doing now, really? What's this all about? It's about opening the Strait of Hormuz, which is interesting because militarily it's like almost impossible. Obviously, you can't just take any ships through there because they just get bombed. And so now we're going to send in troops, drop them on the ground. It's said that the territory there is impossible to get through. It's surrounded by mountains. And I don't know how impossible. Everybody can get in through everywhere, but it's going to be a lot of human life lost. Whereas, on the other hand, you could open it easily. Just say, all right, stop the war. Trump could just say, I won. I got everything won. I mean, he just says whatever he wants, and that would be the end of it. But it could be someone's pulling his strings. In fact, a story came out recently, supposedly leaked from the Department of War, that who pushed Trump's buttons to do this war in the first place? Netanyahu, for one, which we could understand. But then, who else? Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch? Some citizen, some just guy in the street who puts out a newspaper. He is able somehow to tell the President of the United States how to start a war with another country. These kind of things are unbelievable. And I mean, they could have been. It's typical, goes on forever. You only learn things as you get along in life, right? Young kids coming up now, they don't know these things. They'll get up to our age and they'll be realizing these things like it's new to them. Whoa, wow, it's like probably Caesar Augustus, he learned these things when he was our age, but we just learn it when you have to get to that appropriate age. Okay, Iran unveiled a new long-range missile. They're calling it intermediate range missile. It struck a base in the Indian Ocean that was being used as a launching point for Americans' vessels. It's in the Indian Ocean. It's called Diego Garcia. They didn't actually hit the base, but they came close. And the thing about this is the distance from Iran to that base is the same as the distance from Iran to European cities. So this opened some people's eyes that now Iran could attack Europe if there's some reason to. So what else? Ohio Republicans have proposed legislation to track pregnancy. So now you go to your doctor, you're pregnant, you want to do everything for your baby and make sure you're healthy and fine. Now that's got to be reported on a form. It's got to be submitted to the national database of tracking pregnancies, and you have to give updated reports constantly. And if there's a miscarriage, you have to report how and why and when and what happened to the fetus. They just want to track this left, right, and center, up and down, so that they can make sure that they try to execute you if you had an abortion. And execute you is right, because they're trying to put through a legislation that an abortion is a death penalty. All right, X, that wonderful program X, is leaving up a post that was seeking a bounty on a Iranian commentator who's very popular on liberal channels for talking about the affairs with Iran and the United States in this war. And of course, he's not saying pro-US, right? Well, this person on X put up a bounty for his death. And, it's a kind of little violation of X's rules, that you can't do that kind of violent stuff. So, but even after it was reported that this post is up there, they still left it up. So these ideas about there's rules this and rules that, they're meaningless. It's just like the Supreme Court has rules this and rules that, or have precedent. No such thing as precedent. The only thing that matters is what the courts feel like doing at the moment. The only thing that matters in anything in this world is what the people in authority feel like doing at the moment. That's what it all comes down to. All right, now with all of that, I think what you really should be interested in is two things. Number one, there's this picture over here. You might be wondering where that comes from. That's a picture I made using 3D Studio Max, tinkering around, seeing if I could create something. It was a building I used to work in. I love 3D Studio Max, but they want like a couple of grand a year just to have a subscription for it, and that's just too much for my budget. So I went with something a little more affordable. I went with Blender. And how much more affordable? How about free? And that's really great. Now, I'm no professional. I don't go anywhere in depth to any of the fine detailed things you can use in either of these programs. But I would really like to go back to Max because it was what I started with, but not at that kind of money. So I'll stay with Blender. Then, lastly, we've got what do cats and reptiles have in common? You might not think about it, but it's in the eyes. They both have slit eyes. And you know how things are genetic in this world? You might wonder, is there some link in the past somewhere where cat DNA is related to snake DNA? And when I say cats, I mean kitty cats. I don't mean tigers, lions, and of course not bears and not cats. But no tigers, no lions. They all have round irises. Cats have slit irises. How strange those cats are. Well, cats are strange. I'm a cat person. I like dogs too. You can't beat those waggy tails. But any rate, that's all for these stories. I hope you like it. I have fun doing them. I hope you look for Generally Speaking again. Please hit the like, subscribe, and notify, and have a nice day.